Hello and welcome to the channel. This is all about trucking history. And part of that history, as I've talked about in other videos, is the hearings that all applicants applying for certificates or permits had to go through in order to be approved by the Interstate Commerce Commission. Not everybody got approved, and that's what this video is about. There were quite a lot of people who were denied their applications to get a certificate of authority. There were a lot of reasons why, and I'm going to cover some of them in this video. So let's get started. A lot of the early applications that went through the hearings, say in the first wave of hearings that occurred in 1936, a lot of those applications did not get approved for whatever reason. And I'm going to tell you some of the reasons right here. Like, for instance, docket number 50194. The applicant was Carl E. DeGroot, D-E-G-R-O-O-T. He submitted a contract carrier application. And here's what the examiner said about his application. The examiner finds that it does not appear from the application or from the hearing held thereon that the proposed operation would be consistent with the public interest and the policy declared in Section 202A of the Motor Carrier Act of 1935, and that the application should be denied. Now, what that means, each application to be approved had to meet the public necessity. Was it necessary for the applicant to have a trucking company or to continue with the trucking company he already has? If it was in the public interest, if it would make it easier, better, whatever, to ship freight using that applicant, then it would be approved. If there were other people already in the business, or the new trucking company would harm existing companies and their business, then it'd get denied. Okay, let's go further. What happened to cause such a denial? The truck used in the business of DeGroot Truck Line was destroyed by fire in August 1936. So technically, he was not in the trucking business when the hearing was held on November 9th of 1936. See, another part of regulations that the ICC put on trucking companies is that once you got authority, you had to consistently provide the service that you applied for. You couldn't do it on a whim. You couldn't do it whenever you wanted to. You had to do it consistently whenever there was freight to be shipped. His truck was destroyed. He wasn't in business when the hearing came across, so the ICC had a legitimate case there. During the hearing, Mr. DeGroot said he proposed to purchase a new truck. He hadn't done it yet. Was he going to? Who knows? Protesting motor carriers jumped on the reasons why the application should be denied. One was that the present motor carriers and the railroads already furnished adequate service in the areas that Mr. DeGroot had been doing business in between 1934 and up until August 1936. So he started in business in 1934. He did it for about 2 years until his truck caught fire. The fact that he wasn't in business now meant that his service was no longer consistent. I just told you about that. You got to do it consistently. A shipper is not going to wait on you until you buy a new truck. A shipper wants his stuff delivered from point A to point B in a reasonable amount of time. And DeGroat wasn't doing it. The fact that he wasn't in business now meant that his service was no longer consistent. Plus, during the hearing, Mr. DeGroat said that although he intends to buy a new truck, his son would be operating it. The protesting motor carriers used that as a reason for his application to be denied too. Okay, if his son was going to be operating the truck and actually doing the business as a contract carrier, the application should have been put in his son's name instead of Carl E. DeGroat's name. That's simple. So, he got denied. Ding. That's the first reason. Then we have motor carrier docket 50054 from Charles Edward Acheson, Acheson. He applied for a common carrier certificate. Here's the reason for the denial. We find the proposed operation is not shown to be required by the present or future public convenience and necessity, and that the application should be denied. The ICC said it's not needed. It's not going to benefit the public. It's just going to benefit Charles Edward Acheson. But one of the commissioners in that hearing, Commissioner Lee, he dissented. He was on the side of the applicant. And I'm going to read part of this. I've read it all, but I'm not going to bore you with details. In my opinion, it is in the public interest to permit such a small operation. It is true that the applicant has no money and but small resources. He may not be able to make a success of the undertaking. That is the choice he has taken. To permit the operation would injure no other carrier. So in my opinion, the application, as limited as it is, should be granted. Makes sense to me. Now, the way this was, this applicant was a farmer in a very low population area. He only wanted to haul livestock and feed for the farmers from his area in Wyoming to the nearest big city of, I forget where it was now, but Cheyenne or Denver. And he was going to do it only when the surrounding farmers needed help. Okay? The area he lived in was not densely populated, so it would not require somebody to be at service to haul livestock or feed every day of the week. It's whenever they wanted him to haul. And that's what Commissioner Lee was talking about. It's a small operation. Nobody else is doing it. The guy thinks he can make a run of it. Let him. But the rest of the commissioners at the hearing voted down. So he got denied. There's more coming. Hold on. I've got some more for you. Different reasons why they were denied, but still, I want to give you more than just two. Okay? David S. Caswell Jr., his application for a contract carrier under docket number 50004. The Department of Public Utilities of Massachusetts had already given him a permit number 5212, and the Division of Public Utilities of Rhode Island had already given him a permit number 202. Here's what the ICC said about his application. It is apparent for the record that the applicant is not operating as a bona fide contract carrier, but as a common carrier. For the foregoing reasons, we find the application should be denied, and that was decided on December 11th, 1936. Some carriers, and I have one in mind and I'm going to give you an example of, some carriers could not decide if they wanted to be a common carrier or a contract carrier. Now, just for the record, let me explain the difference. A common carrier would carry freight for anyone as long as it's not hazardous or in bulk or whatever. They were called common carriers of general commodities. A contract carrier would only generally haul freight for one, two, or a few more specific companies, hauling only their freight. Now, in some occasions, some trucking companies, although they thought they were a little bit of each, they applied for both a common carrier under one application and a contract carrier under another one. A prime example of this. Here comes my favorite trucking company of all time, Branch Motor Express. Under MC 10875, they were granted a common carrier application. Under MC 10876, at the same time, they had applied for a contract carrier application. And here's why. When they first started, they were hauling for a few select companies, hauling fabric from Poughkeepsie, Pennsylvania, up to the cutting rooms and assembly, whatever, making garments in New York, and then bringing those garments back, or the fabric back to Poughkeepsie to make more of whatever clothing they were hauling. So in that instance, they thought they were a contract carrier. ICC said, nope, you are a common carrier. So they got the common carrier certificate 10875. 10876, when they decided that it wasn't going to be used, it was never given to anybody else. When you got a ICC number, even before your hearing, that number stayed with you forever, whether or not you were granted authority or not. If you weren't, as in the case of 10876, nobody ever got to use it. If Branch had ever become a contract carrier, then they could have gone to the ICC and said, look, you've already got a docket with 10876 on it. Let's have a hearing and use it. So that's how that worked. Okay? All right. So now you know about David S. Caldwell. The ICC decided, you're not a contract carrier, you're a common carrier, so forget that. But he never applied for a general commodities common carrier certificate. So who knows what happened to him. All right. H.A. Connor, under motor carrier docket 18661, he applied for a common carrier application. Now get this. During the hearing, he testified in part, when that law first went into effect, talking about the motor carrier law of 1935, when that law went into effect, things were getting so bad that we just couldn't operate on what the public was paying at the time and what the truckers were offering to take it for. Okay, he knew he couldn't make any money. In light of the evidence, it is clear that the applicant actually abandoned all long-distance operations in 1931. Now, I didn't give you the whole details of it, but he had been operating from the late 20s, hauling in Michigan to Illinois or whatever. But when things got bad, he stopped in 1931. He still applied for an application due to the law that stipulated if you want to be a trucker, you've got to apply for it. They found out, hey, you gave it up in 1931, so get out of here. All right, here's a good one. Under docket number 50049, C&D Oil Company. They applied for a contract carrier application. Now, there was a specific type of lubricant that they wanted to haul to certain distributors. It is clear that the transportation which C&D proposes to perform is now being handled with efficiency by W.A. Sabins and Son and P.D. Mertry Motor Transportation Company, which claims the right to apply under the grandfather clause of the Act. Okay, you got two companies that's already doing business, already have been. They've already got applications waiting in the big stack to be considered. Now, they were already in business, so they get first crack at it under what's called the grandfather clause. If you were already in business, if you can prove it, then you can stay in business. But this C&D Oil Company, they wanted to get into the business, not having been in it already. So the other two carriers cried foul, or could have, and said, hey, we're already doing it. We're doing it and have been, so forget the other guy. So that's what happened with that one. If you were wanting a new service and people were already in it, doing it, then chances are you couldn't join the party. All right. ICCMC 50110, Edward T. Merritt Common Carrier Application. I had a few videos ago about all these applicants from Seaford, Delaware, little old town. There was about 7 or 8 applications out of that one town. And I did a whole video on how they got denied. Specifically, every one of the Seaford applicants used the same lawyer to represent them before the ICC. This lawyer wasn't any good. He only got one of them approved. I think it was the first one. The rest of them? So, go back and look at that video, and I'll tell you all about Edward T. Merritt. All right, here's the last one. And this is good. Now, I know this channel is called Trucking History. Okay, I get that. But you have to remember that the ICC not only regulated trucking companies, but they also regulated bus lines. Taking passengers and mail and newspapers, back in the early days. All right. Under docket number 50656, a bus line called Ritz Aero Lines. They applied for a common carrier application. Bus lines had to do the same thing as truckers, apply for a common carrier certificate, tell the ICC where they wanted to go, what routes they wanted to use, and hope for the best. So it wasn't only the trucking companies that got denied. All right, bus lines were denied certificates as well, and here's why. When Ritz Aero Lines filed an application on April 20th of 1936, they wanted to take passengers between Detroit, Michigan, and Washington, D.C. over several routes. Detroit to Washington is a long way, especially on a bus in 1936. All right. At the hearing, 21 other bus lines showed up with their lawyers to protest the application that Ritz Airlines had submitted. 21. The odds were stacked against them. The application alleges that the proposed service is required by public convenience and necessity because the public desire to travel is increasing, and according to Ritz Aero and their lawyers, the existing service makes it necessary for passengers to stand while en route. So in other words, they were saying, hey, the buses are so full, let us join the party. We can handle it. But during the hearing, it was shown that numerous buses on frequent schedules have vacant seats on every vehicle. The 21 other bus lines said and proved, I guess, to the ICC that, hey, we got empty seats. There's no need for Ritz Airlines to take some of our existing business away and cause us to have more empty seats. Now, I get it. This is about trucks, not about buses, but this is just an example of how thorough protesting companies could be when your hearing came up for an application. You know, it's not just you presenting your case and saying, hey, I want to be a trucker, I can do this. If there's enough companies already doing what you're going to do, the odds are against you. And they apparently did not do their homework. Okay, I'll have more in another video, but I just wanted to give you some idea of some of the reasons why applications before the ICC could have been denied. It's good to know because it's part of trucking history. And that's what this channel is all about. It's not just looking at photos of old trucks or looking at route maps to show where, the trucking companies throughout history have operated to, or not showing where their terminals were. It's more than that. It's the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people may not know about. And that's what I want to show you because it is part of trucking history. Now, if you like this video, you enjoy it, want to see more of it, leave a comment. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Look back at the videos that this channel has done during the past several months, and you'll see there's a wide variety of stuff that I talk about. I talk about the 1930s, and I talk about the 1970s. So it's all part of trucking history, and that's what you're here to find out. So I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.